The room smelled like burnt candles and spilled wine, but nobody dared to move, not after what I said. My words were still hanging there, cutting through the laughter and clinking glasses like a blade. If you want him, Mara, just take him. Don't pretend anymore. I didn't plan it. It wasn't some dramatic speech I rehearsed in the mirror. It just ripped out of me, raw and shaking, after months of swallowing every suspicion, every late-night excuse, every moment her phone lit up and she tilted it away from me. And there I was, standing in front of her family, my friends, and him. Colin. The man she swore was just a coworker. Her eyes widened like I'd set fire to the room. No denial, no anger, just silence. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own voice when I whispered, "Choose, right here." In front of everyone. Nobody moved. Her sister's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My friend Nolan looked down at the floor, pretending he hadn't just heard me beg for my own wife's loyalty. And Mara, she just sat there, lips trembling, her gaze fixed somewhere far behind me. She didn't say a word. That silence hurt worse than if she'd laughed in my face. I felt every pair of eyes burning into me, but I didn't care anymore. I grabbed my jacket, my hand shaking so badly I nearly ripped the zipper, and I walked out. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just the sound of my boots against the wooden floor and the door slamming so hard the chandelier rattled. The night air outside hit me like a slap, but I kept walking. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to get away. From her, from the truth I was too cowardly to face, from everyone pretending they didn't know this was coming. And as I reached the street corner, I realized something. That silence was her answer. I didn't stop walking. My hands were still trembling, my breath ragged, as I made my way down the dark street, the sound of distant cars blending with the buzz of my thoughts. It's strange how your entire life can shrink into a single moment. One second you're sitting at the table, pretending everything's fine, and the next, you're outside in the cold, with your world collapsing quietly behind you. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even jealous. What I felt was worse. I felt small, like I'd been erased. I kept replaying that silence in my head, like a broken record. Mara's lips parted, her eyes wide, but not a single word for me. No, I love you. No, please stay. Not even the decency of a lie. Just silence. It's funny. I used to think silence between us meant comfort, like those lazy Sunday mornings when we'd just lie there, saying nothing. But this was different. This silence screamed louder than anything I've ever heard. I ended up at a gas station, of all places. I sat on the curb, staring at the flickering sign, feeling like the world was moving on without me. People came and went, grabbing snacks, filling up their cars, while I sat there, broken and invisible. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, probably her, or maybe Nolan trying to play peacemaker, but I couldn't bring myself to look. I wasn't ready to see her name, not after tonight. Then something strange happened. I saw Colin's car drive by. At first I thought I imagined it, but then I saw his face in the driver's seat, and he wasn't alone. Mara was with him. She wasn't crying or looking guilty. She was laughing. Laughing. That image is burned into me like a scar. I felt this wave of nausea crash over me. All those months I spent doubting myself, questioning if I was just insecure or paranoid. And there she was, in his car, smiling like she hadn't a care in the world. Like I didn't exist. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was walking fast, my mind racing with questions I didn't want the answers to. Where were they going? Had they been planning this all along? And why, after all this time, did I still want her to choose me? I hated myself for it, but I still did. I followed them. Yeah, I know how pathetic that sounds. But I had to see where this would end, even if it destroyed me. I didn't plan on following them. At least, that's what I kept telling myself as I trailed their car through the dim streets, headlights cutting across the wet pavement. It felt like my body was moving on its own, like my legs and hands had decided I didn't get a say anymore. Every red light they stopped at was another punch to my gut. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, my palms slick against the steering wheel. I kept telling myself I'd just see where they were going, then I'd turn around and head home. But I didn't. I couldn't. They drove for about 20 minutes out past the familiar neighborhoods, into a part of town I'd never really explored. It was one of those places where every house looks too perfect, like something out of a real estate magazine. Fresh paint, perfectly trimmed hedges, expensive cars parked in spotless driveways. And then they stopped. Mara got out of the car first, her heels clicking against the pavement like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't shattering me with every step. Colin followed, casually pressing the button on his key fob to lock the car, as if this was just another night. I parked half a block away, close enough to see but far enough to hope they wouldn't notice me. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tight I thought it might crack. They walked up to a house I didn't recognize. It wasn't his apartment, and it definitely wasn't ours. The porch light flickered as she reached into her purse for something. A key. A key. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I might be sick. She had a key to this place. I wanted to storm out of my car, scream, demand an explanation, but I didn't. I watched as they stepped inside, the door closing behind them and the light in the window turning on a moment later. I stayed there for what must have been half an hour, just staring at that house like it held all the answers I'd been too afraid to face. Every second that passed felt heavier than the last. My phone buzzed again, her name flashing across the screen. I didn't answer. What would she even say? What excuse could possibly undo what I just saw? Eventually, I got out of the car. I don't even know why. I crept up to the edge of the yard, my breath shallow, my ears ringing. The blinds in the front window were partially open, and I could see movement inside. Mara was laughing again, tossing her hair like she used to when we first met. Colin handed her a glass of wine, his hand brushing hers, and she didn't pull away. I stood there, frozen, my entire body shaking. I don't know how long I watched them, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 50. And then, as I was about to leave, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. On the table by the door, next to Colin's wallet and keys, there was a picture frame. I squinted through the glass, trying to make it out, and my heart stopped. It was a photo of Mara, not just any photo, one I'd never seen before. She was smiling, wearing a dress I didn't recognize, and standing next to Colin like they'd been a couple for years. Like I was the stranger in this story. That's when I knew this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment betrayal. This wasn't just about me being insecure. Something deeper was going on here, something I wasn't supposed to find. I don't know what possessed me to walk up to that house. Maybe it was the photo on the table that did it, Mara and Colin, side by side, smiling like they'd been living this whole other life I knew nothing about. It didn't look like a new picture. It looked lived in, like it had been sitting there for months, maybe years. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself, but I couldn't just walk away. Not anymore. The closer I got, the more surreal it all felt. My shoes crunched against the gravel driveway, and for a split second, I thought I saw the curtain twitch in one of the side windows. I froze. My heart was hammering so hard, I was sure they could hear it from inside. I wanted to scream, to bang on the window, to force them to tell me what was happening, but I didn't. Instead, I walked up to the door and raised my hand, hovering just inches from the wood, my knuckles shaking. What was I going to say if they opened it? "Hi, I'm Mara's husband, the guy she conveniently forgot to mention while she was busy playing house with you." I felt pathetic just thinking about it. But before I could decide, something strange happened. I heard voices, muffled but heated. It wasn't laughter anymore. It was an argument. Mara's voice sharp and clipped, cutting through the walls, and Colin's, low and angry. I pressed closer to the door, straining to hear. "You can't just show up here like this," Colin snapped. "You're not supposed to leave anything behind. Do you have any idea how dangerous this is?" "Dangerous?" My stomach flipped. "You think I care anymore?" Mara shot back, her voice trembling, but not from fear, from fury. "I'm done hiding. He knows something's wrong. He's not stupid." I stumbled back, my mind racing. What the hell were they talking about? Hiding what? Was this even about cheating anymore? Or was I in the middle of something bigger, something I didn't understand? My legs felt weak, but I couldn't leave. I had to know. I crept around to the side of the house, peering through a narrow gap in the curtains. Mara was pacing the living room, her hands shaking as she clutched her phone. Colin stood by the door, rubbing his face like he was about to lose it. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A black duffel bag on the couch, half unzipped, stuffed with stacks of cash. Not a few bills, stacks, thousands, maybe more. What the hell had Mara gotten herself into? I must have made a noise because suddenly Mara froze. Her head snapped toward the window, her eyes locking onto me. For a split second, neither of us moved. It was like time stopped. Then she mouthed something I couldn't hear, her face going pale. Colin turned, saw me, and his expression changed from confusion to something darker, almost predatory. I didn't wait to find out what came next. I bolted. I don't even remember how I got back to my car. My breath burned in my chest, my hands shaking so violently I dropped my keys twice before I could start the engine. And as I sped away, all I could think about was that bag of money and the way Mara looked at me, like I'd just uncovered something I was never supposed to see. That night, I didn't go home. I drove for hours, my mind spinning in 1,000 directions. Was she in trouble? Was Colin some kind of criminal? Or had she been lying to me for years, living a double life while I played the clueless husband? Every scenario that crossed my mind was worse than the last. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I hated her, but I needed answers. By the time I pulled into an empty parking lot at 3 a.m., I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this go. Tomorrow, I'd confront her, not as the crying, desperate husband she'd walked all over, but as someone who deserved the truth, no matter how ugly it was. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the driver's seat of my car, parked in some nameless lot, watching the sun creep up like it was mocking me. My brain kept replaying every second from last night. The argument, the cash-stuffed bag, the way Mara's eyes locked on me like I'd crossed some line I didn't even know existed. I felt like a man standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into a darkness so deep that it was almost calling my name. By the time I finally pulled into our driveway, my hands were shaking. The house looked exactly the same as it did yesterday. The same flowers she planted in spring, the same chipped front step I always promised to fix. It felt unreal that behind those walls, my entire world had shifted. Her car wasn't there, which gave me time to think, although thinking was the last thing I needed. I paced the living room for what felt like hours, waiting for her to come home. When she finally walked through the door, her face was pale, and she flinched when she saw me standing there, not like someone who's guilty of cheating. No, this was something different. She looked scared. "We need to talk," I said. My voice was low, steadier than I felt. She dropped her purse on the table, her hands trembling as she tried to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. "Don't lie to me. I know about Colin. I saw the house, the money, everything. What the hell is going on, Mara?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't break down like I expected. Instead, she just stared at me, like she was deciding if she could trust me with whatever truth she was hiding. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Walter, it's not what you think. You shouldn't have followed me." I laughed, an ugly, broken laugh. "Not what I think. You've been sneaking around with another man, sneaking into a house you have keys to, and sitting on a pile of cash big enough to make the news. So, tell me, Mara, what am I supposed to think?" She shook her head, biting her lip like she was holding back something heavy. "You don't understand. Colin, he's not what he looks like. He's not just some guy. And that money, Walter, that money is dangerous. You weren't supposed to see it." "Dangerous?" I stepped closer, my frustration boiling over. "Are you in some kind of trouble? Are you working with him? Or is this some twisted game where I'm the idiot husband while you play secret agent with your co-worker?" She froze. For a moment, I thought I'd broken her wall. Her shoulders slumped, and she finally met my eyes. "I wanted to protect you from all of this, from him, from what I've been doing. But it's too late now." "Too late for what?" I asked. But before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. She grabbed it so fast you'd think it was a grenade. One glance at the screen, and her face drained of color. "We have to go," she said suddenly, her voice sharp, commanding. "Right now?" "Go? What are you talking about?" She didn't answer. She just started grabbing things. Her jacket, her purse, keys. "Walter, please, if you trust me at all, get in the car." I didn't trust her, not anymore. But something about the way she said it, the sheer panic in her voice, made me move without thinking. As we got into the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pulled into something I might never crawl out of. The car ride felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Mara's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles were white, and every so often, she would glance at the rearview mirror like we were being followed. I didn't ask where we were going at first. I just sat there, watching the world blur by, my mind tangled in too many questions. I kept thinking of the photo in Colin's house, the one where she was smiling next to him like I'd never existed. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the way she was breathing, shallow and erratic, told me I wouldn't like what I'd hear. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Mara, what is this? Where are we going? What the hell is happening? My voice cracked, and I hated how weak I sounded. She didn't look at me, didn't even flinch, just kept her eyes on the dark road. I'll tell you when we're safe, she said, and those words sank into me like ice. Safe from what? We drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city lights behind and heading into the woods. I could barely see the road ahead, just a thin ribbon of asphalt cutting through endless trees. The silence between us was unbearable. I wanted her to yell at me, to cry, to say something, anything, just to make this feel real. Instead, she just kept driving, her jaw clenched, like she was holding back a scream. I tried again. Was it ever real? Us, I mean. Or have I just been background noise this whole time, while you've been living another life with him? She slammed the brakes so hard I was thrown forward against the seatbelt. The car stopped in the middle of the road, and for the first time that night, she turned to me, her eyes blazing. Don't you dare say that. I married you because I loved you, Walter. I still do. But you have no idea what you've just stepped into. You think this is about some affair? You think Colin is just some guy I'm sneaking around with? Her voice was shaking now, but not from guilt. There was fear in it. Real fear. I stared at her, completely lost. Then what is this, Mara? Explain it to me, because I'm losing my mind here. What's with the money, the house? Why does he have pictures of you? She took a deep breath, her hands trembling on the wheel. Colin isn't who you think he is. He's not just a coworker. He's dangerous, Walter. He's been pulling me into something for months now, something I can't get out of. And the money. God, the money is just the start of it. You saw too much last night, and now he knows you know. That's why we can't go home. Not now, maybe not ever. I felt like the ground was tilting beneath me. Dangerous? Can't go home? It sounded insane, like something out of a bad thriller. But the terror in her eyes told me she believed every word she was saying. I leaned back, trying to process, but nothing made sense. I kept thinking about Colin's face when he saw me at that window. That wasn't the look of a man caught cheating. That was the look of someone deciding what to do with a witness. Before I could ask anything else, headlights appeared behind us, growing larger in the mirror. Mara's breath hitched. He found us, she whispered, her voice breaking. She slammed the accelerator, and the car lurched forward, the tires screeching against the wet road. I turned to look, and my blood ran cold. It was Colin's car. The sound of tires on wet asphalt filled the air, sharp and relentless. As Mara slammed her foot down on the gas pedal, the car jolted forward, and I was thrown back into my seat, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might rip out of my chest. Behind us, Colin's headlights cut through the dark like twin blades, closing the distance faster than I could process. I turned in my seat, watching him gain on us, his car weaving from side to side like a predator circling its prey. I couldn't wrap my head around what was happening. This was Colin, the guy who'd been smiling at our dinner table just yesterday, the guy who seemed too smooth and self-assured to ever lose his cool, and now he was chasing us through the middle of nowhere like a man possessed. Mara, what the hell is going on? I shouted over the roar of the engine. My voice cracked, panic bleeding into every word. She didn't answer, her jaw set like stone, eyes locked on the twisting road ahead. I reached out, grabbing her arm, desperate for some kind of explanation. If you don't tell me right now, I swear I'll... Walter, just shut up and let me drive, she snapped, her voice trembling but fierce. Do you think I wanted you to get dragged into this? Do you think I wanted any of this? He knows we saw the money. He knows we know. He won't let us just walk away. I stared at her, trying to make sense of it, but the only thing I could think about was how fast we were going. The trees on either side of the road blurred into streaks of black, and every curve felt like it could send us spinning into oblivion. I looked back again. Colin was even closer now, maybe 10 feet behind us, his high beams flooding the interior of our car with harsh white light. I could almost see his face, twisted with fury. What does he want, Mara? Is this about the money? Are you mixed up in something illegal? My voice cracked again, but she didn't answer. Instead, she jerked the wheel hard to the right, sending us onto a dirt road I hadn't even noticed. Gravel and mud kicked up behind us, but Colin followed, his headlights bouncing wildly as he hit the same turn. That's when Mara finally spoke, her words rushed and panicked. I didn't have a choice. It started with him asking me for favors at work, small things I didn't even question. But then it escalated. He's not just some guy, Walter. He's connected to people who don't ask, they tell. That money in the bag, it's not his. It's not mine. It belongs to people who don't care who they hurt to get it back. If they find out we saw it, we're as good as dead. Her words hit me like a punch. My head was spinning. So what? You're saying we're running for our lives because your co-worker is involved with some kind of mob? Something like that, she muttered through gritted teeth. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her she should have told me everything from the start, but I didn't have time to be angry. Colin's car slammed into the back of ours, sending us lurching forward. The sound of metal crunching against metal rang in my ears, and Mara fought to keep control of the steering wheel. "Hold on!" she yelled as she swerved sharply to avoid a fallen branch in the road. My head slammed against the window, stars bursting in my vision, but I stayed conscious, my adrenaline pushing me past the pain. Then, through the chaos, I saw something up ahead, an old, abandoned gas station, its lights long dead, its sign hanging by a single rusted chain. Mara made a split-second decision, cutting the wheel and skidding into the gravel lot. Colin's car shot past us, overshooting the turn. Mara didn't hesitate. She killed the engine, grabbed my hand, and yanked me out of the car. "We can't stay here," she hissed, dragging me toward the side of the building. "But we need to hide, just for a minute. I need you to trust me, Walter. Please, just this once." I stared at her, breathing hard, my mind reeling from everything I'd just heard. Trust her? After all the lies, the secrets, the nights she spent smiling at another man while I sat at home wondering what went wrong. But in that moment, I didn't have a choice. I followed her behind the building, crouching in the shadows as Colin's car turned around, his headlights sweeping across the lot like searchlights. He slowed down, the engine idling, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he'd spotted us. But then he drove on, the sound of his tires fading into the distance. Mara collapsed against the wall, clutching her knees, tears streaming down her face. "We don't have much time," she whispered. "There's something you need to know about Colin, something I never wanted you to find out." Mara's words hung between us like a noose, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. She was shaking, really shaking now, and I realized that whatever she was about to say wasn't just going to be about Colin. It was going to be about everything. "Colin isn't my lover," she said finally, her voice trembling but steadying with every word. "He's my brother." For a moment, I just stared at her, stunned into silence. "Your brother?" "You never said you even had a brother, Mara." My voice cracked, confusion crashing into me like a tidal wave. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you dragged into his mess," she whispered, her eyes glistening in the dim light of the abandoned gas station. "Colin disappeared years ago. He got mixed up with the wrong people, running money for people who would rather kill him than forgive a mistake. When he showed up again a few months ago, begging for my help, I thought I could keep it quiet. I thought I could fix this without you ever knowing." I felt my anger fizzling into something softer. Fear, confusion, but also something like understanding. It wasn't betrayal I'd seen in her eyes all these months. It was desperation. So the house, the money, they're not his. The money belongs to the people who are after him. He stole it to buy his freedom, but they're watching him. And now, because you followed us, they might think you're part of this too. She grabbed my hands, holding them tightly like I was her last lifeline. "I'm sorry, Walter. I should have told you. I was just trying to protect you. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell and tell her how much it hurt, thinking she was sneaking around with someone else. But as I looked at her, standing there trembling and terrified, I felt something else rise up inside me. The stubborn, relentless love that had made me marry her in the first place. She wasn't perfect, but neither was I. And maybe, just maybe, we still had a shot at being us again. Before I could answer, headlights swept across the road again. Colin's car. Mara stood, ready to run, but I stepped forward instead. "No," I said firmly. "We end this now. Together." When Colin's car screeched to a halt, I expected a fight. But when he stepped out, he wasn't the arrogant, smooth guy I remembered. He looked broken, exhausted, like a man on the edge. "I didn't want this," he said, his voice hoarse. "I never wanted to drag you both into this, but they know now. If we don't give back the money tonight, none of us are safe." It was chaos, shouting, arguing, fear pulsing through every word. But in the middle of it all, I did something I never thought I would. I told him I'd help. The next few hours were a blur of tense calls, frantic driving, and finally, Colin meeting with the people he owed. It felt like walking on a tightrope over fire, but somehow it worked. The money went back, and with it, the danger slipped away, at least for now. By the time the sun was rising, Mara and I were standing in our driveway again, watching Colin drive off into the horizon. For the first time in months, the air between us felt clear. "I'm sorry," she said softly, leaning into me. "For everything. For letting it get this far." I wrapped my arms around her, holding her tight. "No more secrets," I said. "If we're going to make it, it has to be us. Just us against whatever comes." And for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled, really smiled, the way she used to when things were simple. That morning, we sat together on the porch, watching the world wake up. We were both tired, bruised, and shaken, but we were together. And maybe that was enough to start over.